Okay, back working on the x495. I'm going to have the rest of the videos in this series linked in the description if you haven't seen them already. If you have saw them the last time you saw this, I just had the engine bolted in there and I showed it running. Since then I pulled that out. It's sitting on the counter, but I'll get to that in a minute. I painted the frame. I painted the wheels. I did, of course, weld that bracket a little bit better. The welds aren't the prettiest, but they should hold. I ordered all kinds of stuff for this. There's this gasket kit for the engine. There is temp gauge, an electric fan for the radiators, a fuel pump. I forget what else, all kinds of stuff. But I'm going to have that all linked in the description in case anybody's interested in any of that. So the engine here is a Kawasaki FD620D that I'm using in this instead of the Yanmar diesel it came with because the problems that had. So this engine was knocking, and you see from the gashes in the cylinder that I sanded because there was metal protruding out from that. And there was the same thing in the head. So my thought is at some point in time there must have been a bolt or something that fell down the intake and it was beating around in there. There was nothing that fell out, but there was something in there that was making it knock. But instead of spending the big bucks on there, I figured I'll just buy the cheap $15 gasket kit and work it the way it is, because I mean, looking in the cylinder, there's still, doesn't really want to show up on camera, but there's still them cross marks in there from when they built the engine. But what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to get this engine put back together and probably fastened into the frame, and I'm going to come back and I'll show you the electrical and stuff. Okay, so I got the engine put in. I figured out an exhaust system, which it's pretty loud, but it's an exhaust. So it's a dual exhaust, so this side here has to kind of go up over the radiator hose and then go down out the side, which, I mean, it works. The welds aren't the greatest, but I mean, it is what it is. This hose here I already had. Unfortunately, there's yellow paint on it, but I already had it. I trimmed that to length. That worked out really nice with the original radiator. This one over here didn't work out so nice. I had to use some pipes, which so far from running it for about 10 minutes, it hasn't leaked a drop. And then that goes back up here. It's not that great. I don't really like it, but I mean, I don't know what else to do. I probably could make this hose longer and then just have like an elbow instead, but I'll probably just leave it. I got this little battery protector thing in, and I got it strapped on. Cables are just sitting there. So my next thing is to actually, because I got my fan, the electric fan. This was $18.99. So I can't even believe it. It actually weighs quite a bit. I can't believe this was under 20 bucks. It blows quite an air. You can make it go whatever way you want. You just reverse the wires. So this will be going back between the engine and the radiator. It'll go in there, and then there's like these little ties that stick through the radiator, and you put like this little nut on the back. So I'll have to pull off the hydraulic one, which has these just little twist things. Pull that off, stick the things through, and put that on. I'm gonna have to probably pull the air cleaner off and maybe the carburetor to get to it. Not a big deal. And then from there, I'm gonna get some of the wiring done. Otherwise, I need my fuel pump and I need the coolant temp gauge in order to actually like complete the wiring. But I'm gonna get the radiator in and some of the wiring, and I'm gonna come back and I'll show you that. Okay, so I got a bunch of stuff done. So all the wiring is in. Well, for the most part, other than the dash cluster, which is something I have to make because the original one, the actual circuit board that operated all the gauges, is totally junk. So the temp gauge I ordered is going to go probably on this side where the original one was. I'm going to use, I'll just show it to you actually. I'm going to use this, which was the one that was on there, and it had the circuit board around back. I'm going to drill a hole here for the round temp gauge, and then I think right here is going to be a volt gauge instead of the fuel gauge. And possibly an hour meter right here where it originally was, if I can make that fit. The Piton gauger light is going to work, along with the low oil pressure light. That's going to work as well. just going to use that so then that way there's a bracket to hold everything in there in place. Got the fan installed, so that turned out really nice. It fit in there perfectly. So that's back there. I've got everything ran for the headlights. There's a plug right here, just like what the factory would have. The PTO is wired up. There is a wire for a 12-volt outlet that was in that fender, along with the rear lights. There's a wire here for that as well. So on how this works, so power comes from the battery, goes to a main fuse here, which is a 30 amp fuse. And then it goes up to this, see here, it goes to this relay. And then the relay can go to the key switch as well. So you turn the key switch on, it clicks this relay, which gives power to this fuse panel, which divides the power up to basically individual items like this fan, the computer to run the spark on the engine, the lights, and so on and so on. There's one left for the fuel pump because I don't have that yet, so I'll just plug into this top one. It does start a little funny because there's a separate switch here. Just because the way I was wearing it, I can't use the normal key switch because while you're cranking the engine over, the engine, the computer for the spark plugs, the CDI box, but I'm calling it a computer, it doesn't get power, meaning the engine will never start. But so you got to have a separate button. So turn it on, fan turns on. So it actually starts right up most of the time. Right now there's not even a fuel line hooked to it. It's just fuel that's in the carburetor bowl. You probably noticed there's a little delay after I turn the key off to when the engine shuts off. That's just that little CDI box doing its thing. There's a little delay. But the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the fuel tank put on it. And I'm going to get the fuel pump mounted somewhere over here, I'm hoping. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you that stuff. Okay, so I got the fuel pump installed. It was a little bit of a hassle to find a spot where it wasn't going to hit this little like plastic and metal like mesh shroud thing that goes there. But I found a spot just right here and it didn't hit this little cleanable little grate that goes in there. So the line of course comes from the fuel tank, goes down around the power steering unit there, just to make sure it doesn't get tangled up in anything, and then up through this little hole here in the frame, fuel filter to a T, it goes to the carburetor like so, and then the return line comes down off this side, goes down, follows the other one back to the tank. I did get my water temp gauge finally, and I got that hooked up into my new gauge setup I'm going to do. So I got just a volt gauge, water temp gauge, and an oil pressure. So all of that stuff is just, you know, hooked up to the sensors they're for. The back of this is kind of a mess. So a lot of things aren't actually going to function as they should, but it is what it is. Doesn't really need all that stuff. It does display volts lower than what it actually is. So that is, shut this off so I can talk, but the volts at the dash are 2 volts less than up here. But once as you actually start it, it does come up a little bit, but it is what it is. But I'm going to get this dash mounted and come back and show you that. Okay, so I got the dash cluster of stuff put in. So you turn the key on, and then all the gauges turn on. I didn't put the glass in there because it was really foggy, and there's nothing in here that can't get wet anymore, so I just left that off. Hopefully it'll be fine. It's been a few days since the last time I did a video on this, but it's kind of funny how the fuel lines have a red tint to them, because the diesel that was in that tank was off-road diesel, so it was dyed red, and I dumped it out into another bucket, but never able to get every last drop out without rinsing the tank out with water or something, that there was going to be a little bit of diesel mixed in with the gas. So that's why it's got red fuel lines now. But another thing that happened is I got the fender's floorboard thing and the hood painted. It is John Deere, like OEM John Deere green with a clear coat, automotive style, so 2-stage. And this is very, very shiny. So pretty happy with it. There are some few like little scratches and stuff in it that you could probably see here. I mean, there was quite a bit wrong with it, but I mean, for what it is, I think this is pretty nice. You can kind of see a little something here and there like this. Just a little something. But that is actually going to be it for this video. Next video, I'll be putting this stuff on and doing the finishing touches. So thanks for watching.